Hello again, Cons here. Today I have a run that was recorded a while ago on stream, but I haven't gotten around to uploading it until just now. If you're not aware, I've been streaming quite a bit recently, so maybe follow me on Twitch if you're interested. But yeah, it's a 4-player charge blade. We're all using Ice CB. This isn't as optimized as something like a TDS 4-player run or anything like that. Basically, on stream I just said, if you have a KJAAR Ice CB, I'll run with you. And then everybody was just joining with the Ice charge blade. I wasn't really looking at people's sets. Occasionally we had runs with people using Alatreon and stuff, which is definitely not meta. We're all using comfy builds with a bunch of health boost and not too many offensive skills. So it's like this could definitely be largely optimized. However, I think it's also kind of cool to note that this was done basically with randoms. Like, these are obviously people I was talking to on the stream, but it wasn't like we were in a Discord call all organizing. And these are just people who joined my lobby who I decided to play with. Yeah, so it's a really quick run. It's something like 6.5 minutes. It's quite efficient, and even then, there's still mistakes. There's even a cut. But yeah, I thought it'd be worth talking about. So regarding the opening, I had somebody pick up crystal bursts, but we never ended up using them. The idea was to flinch it while it's in the air so somebody else could flinch shot. We were trying to be organized, but we didn't really put it off very well. But yeah, it's all very standard stuff. So if you've seen my ice charge blade runs from solo, it's quite similar. However, here's quite an important distinction. You'll notice that after I do my double wide swing, I wait for my character to retreat a little bit to do the steps backwards before using the next attack. That is because the upswing that you'll see me spam a lot in solo runs sends your teammates flying. You saw I used it there, and I really shouldn't have. I'll use it probably once or twice throughout this run by accident. It is not good for multiplayer. However, if you wait a bit, it's a little bit less DPS, but at the same time, it just saves you from flinging your teammates around. Now, while I have you here, I think it would be a good idea to maybe talk about why exactly the 4 charge blades are so powerful for this run. Even though, oh whoops, I don't know what I was doing there, to be honest. Yeah, I've talked about this before in the advanced tips video, but just in case you haven't seen it, basically the way that the elemental topple works, the way that it's balanced out is, I'm sure you would imagine that, for example, Greatsword would have a really bad time toppling compared to something like dual blades, and it kind of does still. However, Capcom implemented a method to kind of mitigate against that, and so, for example, I have it on screen now, hopefully. Greatsword has a modifier of 1, whereas dual blade has a modifier less than 1. And what that basically means is it doesn't actually affect the elemental damage you deal. You're still doing the same amount of damage from normal damage calcs. But it means that it will be harder or easier for you to reach the elemental topple. So for example, Greatsword doesn't have to do as much elemental damage to reach that topple. Also, nice whiff. I still can't line up the SAED, I'm too greedy. Or the AED rather. But yeah, so Greatsword will have an easier time than... Well, it won't actually have an easier time, but it'll have to do less damage. It's still a harder time because Greatsword, most of the damage comes from raw. But anyway, you get the idea. Now, Charge Blade. The files were taken down a notch to try and balance that out, because that makes sense. You can imagine a single SAED would probably reach the cap, because it's all elemental damage pretty much. However, the actual charge blade attacks were not. Now, for Axe mode, that makes a lot of sense. It's sort of similar in speed to Greatsword maybe. However, when you account for the sword mode attacks and for the Savage Axe attacks, those still benefit from having the 1.0 modifier as opposed to one of the lower ones like something like dual blades would have, even though they put out really good rates of elemental damage. And so that's the reason that Charge Blade tends to cause these elemental topples so frequently. I know people who've just picked up Savage Axe, just like myself, for example, and immediately they were struggling to get the topple before. I'm looking for rocks, by the way. One of my teammates with the Temporal Mantle is probably gonna... You see the flinch shot in the corner there. But yeah, with the Temporal Mantle is gonna knock it down. But yeah, so a little bit of organization here. But I know people who are able to go straight in from not being able to get the elemental topple and then getting it twice. Just from using Savage Axe alone, and so that's the reason. That's the reason KJAAR Ice is such a good charge blade for this fight. It isn't essential. You don't need KJAAR Ice. Beotodus' charge blade is also really good, but KJAAR is more optimal. As far as the actual team comp goes, we've got a bit of a weird setup here. One of us is like running a build that needs Affinity Man booster, and we don't all have Affinity boosters, so he's at like really suboptimal DPS for half the hunt. But it's really weird. Like, we're all just running our own custom KJAAR Ice builds. I think we're all running Safi 5 though. I'll show the sets right at the end, although I don't go to them in too much detail. Regarding my own set, again, I'll talk about that at the end. But I've already done the Charge Blade video before, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. I'll just give a quick overview. It's just Safi 5 pieces. It's Savage X, so I'm running not Focus, because you don't really have to refill files as much as with SAED. But I am running, obviously, Crit Element from the sword itself, but also things like Capacity Boost and... Protective Polish, as you've probably seen me sharpen. Yeah, kind of typical Savage Axe based set. You can find those all in the meta collections. But yeah, so the idea is to get as many elemental toppers as you can, because that's such great openings, and also just to take sort of advantage of whatever openings you can find. We're not doing any particularly impressive sort of cooperation here, aside from just everybody syncing up using the same weapon because we thought it'd be interesting. It took us a few attempts to get, mostly because I was still talking. So the thing is, if you aren't aware, when I do these things live, I find it really difficult to play at full ability. My insect glaive runs when I go live drop from like 10 minutes to 15 minutes kind of deal. Just because talking to chat and trying to interact and that kind of stuff takes up so much mental energy. So you'll notice that I didn't really refresh my files as much as I should have there. I kind of overcharged files. You saw I didn't sharpen up to white sharpness when I should have. It's because I'm kind of distracted here. But yeah, so I don't really have the mental fortitude to properly organize people. But you can see how little damage the Nova did, because we got, I think it was 3 topples, maybe even 4. Now we know it's fairly close to death, because we had a couple of runs and they tended to take like 6 or 7 minutes each. So we had an idea that it was fairly close. So you'll see a few of us start, yeah, we start getting a little bit desperate to get those last hits off. So I start upswinging people, and it's yeah, it's a bad time all around. But that's the reason that you don't want to be using the upswing. You saw it there. It sent that teammate of mine flying, unfortunately. Another elemental topple, yeah, it's really good. The elemental topple gives you such a long opening for Alatreon, and when you get 3 or 4 of them every 5 or 6 minutes, yeah, you see us there, everybody upswinging. Yeah, it just makes the hunt go incredibly fast. Now, this obviously isn't as good as like spamming Pierce 3 with 4 teammates or anything like that. I don't think anything is ever really going to catch up to that, and we weren't doing some sort of heroics madness, which would be maybe kind of fun, but definitely not within my ability to organize while on stream. But yeah, hopefully that was an interesting watch. 4 KJAAR charge blades all fucking up an Alatreon. Maybe it's a little bit of what's the term? A bit of a release, you know, catharsis after Alatreon bullying us for so long. Yeah, these sets other people are running. It's mostly just 5 Sappy. Pause if you want to see them in more detail. I mean, yeah, I could have probably gone over these in more detail, but I didn't really know if I was going to post this or not. I just thought I'd show them just in case. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that. Let me know if there's any information that I should have included that I didn't. But otherwise, I hope you have a lovely day. And I wish you the best of luck with your Alatreon hunts. Take it easy. Bye-bye.